Hello? Hello? Is this thing working? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Oh, wow. Hello. I'm trying this for the first time. Um, the quality of the camera is not great, unfortunately, but doing a little test run. This is about as good a time as any, considering obviously you guys know by now the Warriors made the trade. They traded Kuminga, they traded Buddy Hield. Not for Giannis, but they traded for Kristaps Porzingis. Oh my gosh, man. My gosh. Where do I even start with this? This is ridiculous, right? All this time, all these rumors, Joe Lacob. Oh, I'll go all in for Giannis. It's got to be a home run. That's the only way I'm going to give up any of my assets, right? Yeah. Turns out Giannis doesn't even want to join the Warriors. So this is where we are now. They went after Kristaps Porzingis. There's so much to say here. Porzingis, if he wasn't going through this health situation, this crisis thing that he's going through, I would say that this would have been a hell of a trade, because basically what's happened now is the Warriors have gotten the two bigs that the Celtics won a title with, right? That's it. Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford. That was their front court when they won the title, right? So you are getting that. There's a good chance that we're not going to see any more 4-guard lineups. I don't know where to look here, guys. Do you mind? I'm looking at the chat mostly. I don't want to be looking at the camera. It's a little weird. Anyway, first and foremost, let me just say hello to everybody in here. Again, this is my first time being live on YouTube. I don't know how a lot of this works, but I'm happy to see you guys in here. Like I said, there's a lot of moving pieces here, a lot of moving parts. So there's a lot to break down. I thought about making a video, but I'm way too tired. So I just want to go over what I need to go over right here. And yes, Trayce Jackson-Davis is also gone. No more Trayce Jackson-Davis. And honestly, I think he was on the wrong team, playing for the wrong coach. I think TJD brings great value, especially for the money that he earns, which is vets minimum. To get a player who can anchor your defense and pay the vets minimum for that, that's high value. That's high value that you're getting on the cheap. And TJD is an explosive finisher at the rim if you use him correctly. Unfortunately, Steve Kerr, for a chunk of his career as a coach, hated the pick and roll, and he just ran motion to the ground. And even though Trayce is a pick and roll player, Steve Kerr elected to use TJD like he was another Kevon Looney, which is ridiculous, right? I mean, TJD is not Kevon Looney. Kevon Looney is not athletic. He's not a player who plays above the rim. He's a guy who sets screens and grabs rebounds and does whatever intangibles he can. That's really all he can do. Whereas Trayce, there's a different dynamic to his game, but you don't run any pick and rolls for the guy, and it's not like you ever run any ISOs for the guy. You don't give him any opportunities to warm up, right? And so I think Trace had a lot of confidence issues in his second year. And, well, he was playing much better this year in his third year whenever he wasn't in tiny four-guard lineups, right? There were many games where Horford was not available, and the combination of Quinton Post and TJD did a really good job of anchoring the team's defense, especially when, for example, Draymond was not available and it was just Post and TJD covering all the center minutes. The Warriors were doing just fine. So, but it is what it is. You get Kristaps Porzingis. Now the Warriors have, three centers, and they would have had four if TJD was still on the roster. So it doesn't really make any sense, right? So I wish the best of luck for TJD. He's going to the Raptors. I don't know if he's going to be able to crack their rotations because they have Pirtle, they have Mamu, they have the rookie kid who seems pretty good. That he's starting for the Raptors right now. That's three centers right there. So I don't know how Trace is going to get into that, into the mix there. But if he's used correctly, he'll be a valuable player. He's a rotational player in the NBA. I'll just put it that way. So best of luck to him. He wasn't going to be able to play with the Warriors. It is what it is. Let me read the chat real quick. He was a monster. Isn't this basically giving up on the season? Well, you're not giving up on the season when you trade for somebody who, it's problematic. Obviously, the health situation with Porzingis, we don't know. As far as I know, he was actually supposed to come back pretty soon. I think he's missed the last month or so, but he was supposed to play, I think, this coming week. So he's close to playing. Which is good news for the Warriors because obviously it's much better than up in the air. They have no idea what's wrong with him. They don't know if he can play. They don't know if he's going to be available, all these things. And honestly, it may still happen. We don't know what's wrong with this dude. The problems that he had last season with his health, I guess they thought that it was done, but turns out it wasn't done. So he's been going through it again this season. So that's a major cause for concern. The one good thing is that the Warriors do have a lot of depth at the center spot. Hopefully Draymond Green will never have to play the center spot ever again because he's not good enough there anymore. Right? You have KP, you have Horford, you have Quinton Post. What do you need Draymond at the center spot for? What is the advantage there? I don't understand what Steve Kerr thinks is the advantage when he goes to these smaller lineups, tiny lineups. Draymond is at the 5, and basically everybody else that is a center on this team can do exactly what he does defensively, except better. There's no center on this team that Draymond is better at playing the center position then, So, and there were rumors about Draymond being traded, and I don't think that's going to happen now that Giannis is out of the equation. Post and KP are the centers. So I think when KP is healthy, right, and Horford is healthy, which he is, I think Quinton Post is now going to be a third stringer. Steve's not gonna play Post anymore, I don't think. So that's very unfortunate because Post has developed a lot this season, and he's been coming off the bench. I think he's been showing a lot more two-way ability coming off the bench, less pressure on offense. Obviously, his problem this season has been offense more than defense. Last season, it was the opposite. He was really good on offense. He was a sharp, lights out shooter, but defensively, he was weak. He couldn't really do much. So it's a really strange transformation where he's worlds apart better on defense, but then I don't know if he just feels more pressure in terms of what he can or can't do on offense, and he just never got into a comfortable rhythm, in terms of shooting the ball. So, but I really like, last game as well. He was really efficient, 17 minutes, 10 points. I think he shot 4 of 6. I think he hit 3 threes. All right, that's very efficient, right? So if he can provide that offense, he's a really, really valuable player for this team. Keith Willis, what's going on, man? It's good to see a lot of you guys here live. I always see, as you guys know, I see all of your comments after every video. I appreciate you guys. You guys make my videos what they are, right? Without you guys and your support, my videos are nothing. I'm speaking to nobody, but thank the heavens you guys are there with me, and I love going on this this journey to try to help the Warriors win another title with you guys. Now, having said that, the biggest elephant in the room is Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga is out of there. Finally, he's out of there. He just, there's so many ways where he just didn't fit with this team one way or another. Before they traded for Jimmy Butler, he played the same position as Andrew Wiggins, right? And he wants to be a starter, but Andrew Wiggins is a starter. So that dynamic was never going to work, which is why. And then on top of that, his rookie year, the defense that he was playing is very amateurish. He never went to college, even whatever level that he played at before he made it to the NBA. I know he was in the G League, before he joined the NBA. I'm just not sure that he was ever required to play a fundamentally sound and competitive, basketball in a way where it's like highly competitive, right? That's required at the college level. If you are not covering the fundamentals of the game, you're not going to play, right? At some point, you're going to lose playing time. That's what you learn in college, is to learn the fundamentals and learn the importance of playing possession by possession basketball and playing reliable defense each possession, right? And Kuminga just wasn't that guy. Kuminga, I think he is an athletic freak, athletic marvel. He jumps out of the gym. So he relied on that sheer athleticism that he has. And he relied on that to do whatever he does on the basketball floor. And, when he's going up for dunks, when he's out in transition and things like that, those things are very useful and he's very explosive. But there's so much more to the game of basketball than that. You have to be able to, especially playing the position that, Kuminga is built for, which is the small forward spot. You can't play power forward because, he hasn't even mastered small forward, right? If you're going to be a combo forward, if you're going to be versatile enough to play small forward and power forward, you have to be a very experienced defender. And he's not. He's not an experienced defender. He's a novice of the game when it comes to defense. So you don't compete at a playoff level, let alone a championship caliber level, when you have a player like this in rotation playing like half the game, right? Half the game, you're playing a novice at a vital defensive position, whether it's at small forward or power forward. It's not going to work. So I saw that, in his rookie year. And then I was hoping for improvements in his second year, and I didn't see it. So I'm just like, this is not going to work. They need to trade him because it's going to take him a long time to develop into a useful defender if he's ever going to become a defender at all in the NBA. Because a lot of players come into the NBA with this, whatever they were built to do. In the case of Kuminga is, I don't know, number 2, number 3 option. He's a scorer, right? I appreciate you guys what is this? Donations or something? I see like Gorat Discovery. Pots next, let him go. Yeah, I'll get to that. Thank you for the donations. I appreciate that. Potts is another player that we need to get to, but Kuminga, obviously, this is such a huge thing for the Warriors because this has been going on for the last 5 years. The whole Joe Lacob's 2 timeline, future plan. Jonathan Kuminga is going to sell tickets, bring the Warriors to the playoffs in the future after Steph Curry's done all these things. And it's just like, based on what, man? What are you basing that on? You're basing that on the potential when you drafted him 5 years ago? And what has he done in the last 5 years for the Warriors, right? Each and every single year that you're in rotation for the Warriors and Steph Curry in his prime years is playing for you, there's no time. There's no time for the Warriors to wait on these players to develop while they mess up constantly and fail to show that they are, developing into at least playoff caliber players, let alone championship caliber, right? You can be playoff caliber and still not be championship caliber. Does that make sense? There's a lot of players in the NBA that are playoff caliber, but not necessarily championship caliber. The Warriors have to raise their standards and understand that when it comes to having a role for the Warriors while they're trying to contend for titles, I mean, those are very exclusive roles that we're talking about, right? So you can't just give that to anybody. And that's what they've been doing with, Kuminga. And it's just like, hey, you're trying to win a title, but you're asking the Warriors to deal with all his inconsistencies on both ends of the floor, right? And when he's out there, it's just a mixed bag of good and bad. And the Warriors are constantly, just getting inconsistent results because you're getting inconsistent play, right? Your team is only going to be as good as the consistency of your players that are in rotation. And Kuminga just never showed the ability to be consistent. That's my problem with all the young players. They're inconsistent. Potts is inconsistent. Moses Moody is inconsistent, right? So there's no bias here in terms of, oh, I like one kid better than the other. They're pretty much all the same to me, unfortunately. Like Potts, he's okay. He could be a rotational player for another team. But it doesn't mean that doesn't mean that he's anywhere close to playoff ready, again, let alone championship ready, right? We saw Potts' performance in the playoffs last season against the Rockets, and it was a disaster. I mean, let's just take a quick look at Brandon Podziemski and what he shot in the playoffs in his first year, right? And it's understandable. You're running into these teams. They're some of the best teams in the world, right? That's what happens when you go to the playoffs. You face the best teams in the world, right? This is the competition that you're facing, and you're only in your second year. So, of course, he's going to, I don't know if you guys know, I don't really curse in my videos. I don't know if that's the problem. So, those of you guys who are experts of YouTube Live, let me know. Is it okay to be cursing in these lives? Okay, so let me just read off these numbers to you. Against the Rockets, Potts shot 38% from the field. As a starter, by the way, played 30 minutes per game. 30 minutes per game, 38% from the field, 34% from the three-point line, 66% from the free throw line, average 11 points. And he's one-way player. He can't play defense. He can't, nothing close to lockdown defense. Think about like Dante DiVincenzo, who's like a 3D guy, right? He's a POA type. And Dante was not good enough for the Warriors in the playoffs. He was really good for the Warriors throughout the course of the regular season, and then they went into the playoffs, and he wasn't good enough anymore. And that's by that time he was with the Warriors, he was considered like, somewhat of a veteran. And even a guy like that wasn't good enough. And you think that Pods in his second year is going to be good enough as a starter for the Warriors? Are you serious? I mean, this front office they're out of their minds. They are so deluded about the value of their own draft picks. It's nonsense. You guys, and Pods was not a bad pick. It's just that, and he's carving out value, right? Well, if he's carved out value, and after his second year, there's a lot of teams that are like, oh, he has potential. Maybe we're interested in, maybe trading for him possibly. And you're just like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to bring the value of your player up and then be able to trade them for something more reliable if you're trying to, if you have a specific goal, like trying to gun for a title. In that case, if the other team is asking you for like, oh, we're interested in Jonathan Kuminga and Pods and, maybe some draft capital, and then we're willing to give you Lauri Markkanen. And then the Warriors are like, oh, no, Pods is untouchable. And you're just like, what in the world? Pods is untouchable? Really? Why? What is he so talented in that makes him so untouchable? Is he a maestro at handling the ball? Is he a master at the point guard position? Is he, like wise beyond his years? Like what does Pods bring to the table that is so valuable to the Warriors that makes them believe that he's the future of this team? I don't understand. What is the logic there? Is he elite at anything? Can he play defense? No, he can't. He gets blown by all the time, right? And he's got like a negative wingspan, all right? And he's not a point guard. He's not an NBA point guard. He has no moves. He has a step back. He has a step back move, but he can't get to the rim, right? He doesn't have a burst. He's not explosive. He's not an exceptional athlete. He's not a point guard. He's, a half-decent secondary shooting guard coming off the bench. That's what he's been for the Warriors. But as a starter, he's been garbage. He's not good enough to be in the backcourt next to Steph Curry. What are we talking about? You want the Warriors to be powerful. You need a powerful defender next to him. That's what Klay Thompson used to be. One of the best two-way threats in the NBA. Right? Always picking up, the best perimeter guy. That was Klay Thompson, right? Klay Thompson had size. He was 6'6", 6'7", elite defender, elite shooter, elite, ability to help in terms of scoring. He brought a lot to the table. And Potts doesn't bring any of these things. But he's untouchable. They need to trade him. They need to trade him because Steve Kerr is in love with him. Steve Kerr is obsessed with him. I don't know if a part of me feels like the front office told him when they signed him to the 2-year contract that like one of the prerequisites of you re-signing with us is that you have to develop the young talent. You have to develop Kuminga, you have to develop Moody, and you have to develop Pods. Right? So that was like the prerequisite. That was like the prerequisite requirement for Steve Kerr to come back to the Warriors. Yeah, I feel like that's part of the reason why he plays Pods so much. Because he wants to develop somebody, I guess, because he hasn't been able to develop anybody. So I still think that they need to trade Pods. I don't think that he should still be on this roster. Trading him would open up space for Seth Curry to eventually get into rotation. Seth Curry is one of the best shooters in NBA history. He needs to get in rotation, and come playoffs, you're going to want to rely on Seth Curry a lot more than Brandon Pajemski. I promise you. I promise you that. I don't know what's going on with Seth Curry's sciatica situation. I don't know if that's even real. But I figure at some point he's gonna play for the Warriors. But how are you gonna play him if Pods has to play at the same time? Well, you're gonna play Pods, Melton, and Seth Curry at the same time? Play this stupid 3-guard lineup? You can't do that. So this is why you need to trade away Potts, man. You don't want to hold on to this guy and then have to deal with the idea of paying him in the offseason some $15-20 million contract per, a 3-year contract for Potts or something. You can't do that. You're wasting resources. So I don't know. I'm still hopeful that I'm still praying that the Warriors are going to be able to trade hopefully both Potts and Moody and bring back a more viable small forward, an actual wing, somebody with size, somebody with quickness, good footwork, good anticipation of it, a veteran, right? Potts and Moody, these guys, they're not veterans. They still make mistakes out there constantly. You can't try to gun for a title and have a bunch of players that are young and constantly making mistakes out there on both ends of the floor. What are we doing? It's not serious, right? So I'm trying to get the Warriors to be as serious as possible, 1 through 9. I'm going to fight for that as much as I can. Having said that, Buddy Hield is gone. So we're never going to see the Potts and Buddy Hield combination again. That is a disaster offense. There's nothing there. Steve Kerr started Potts and Buddy Hield in the playoffs. The Warriors should have taken care of the Rockets in like 5 games last season. Instead, it went to 7. And then Steph Curry pulled a hammy for the first time in his life. It's crazy, man. So that's the situation right now. Buddy Hield is gone. Jonathan Kuminga is gone. These are 2 players that I've been saying for as long as they've been on this team, these guys need to go. And they're finally gone. And now the only issue is Kristaps and his health. And how available is he going to be to the Warriors, right, this season? If he does become available to the Warriors, then you have a lot of size and you have a lot of shooting, right? You have Al Horford, you have Kristaps Porzingis. These guys they're actual champions. They won a title. So you're bringing in 2 front court champions. You're transferring them from the Celtics, right? Albeit to an inferior system, right? in Steve Kerr's system, right? I will say that Steve Kerr, in some ways, has fixed up a bunch of stuff from, how things were in the beginning of the season. But yeah, I don't know. This guy always finds a way to mess things up one way or another. So I have a lot of thoughts about what lineups the Warriors could use or what they have to use in order to make this right. It really stinks to know the possibility of Quinton Post, for all of his developments. I think he's one of the best defenders on the team. And I think he definitely has more grit defensively than Kristaps Porzingis, even if he was healthy, right? Porzingis might be a better shot blocker, but possession by possession defense, Quinton Post is out of this world. He's amazing at that. So you lose something and then you gain something, because Porzingis is obviously worlds apart better offensively, right? He's an incredible offensive talent at the center spot, right? So you got him, you got Al Horford. What are you gonna do with Draymond? Are you gonna put him at small forward, or are you gonna bring him off the bench? Or are you gonna bring Al Horford off the bench? Right? It's probably what Steve's gonna do, right? He's gonna start Draymond, he's gonna start KP, and he's gonna bring Al Horford off the bench, and he's gonna use Horford to, spell KP. But honestly, I think Horford and KP combination would be better than, any combination of Draymond and KP or Draymond and Horford. I just don't understand what Draymond does better than Al Horford at this point. Al Horford is 39. Draymond is 35 still. But I think Horford is clearly better at this point. Draymond has fallen off significantly. His athleticism has fallen off. So his ability to contest, his ability to be athletic when he does contest, all these things that he used to do, all these things that we've been accustomed to watching Draymond do defensively, is not there anymore the way it used to be, right? So there's a little bit of a conundrum there. You look at the development of Guy Santos, and a lot of the things that Guy Santos does in a way is a lot better than what Draymond has been doing for the Warriors, quite frankly. So Steve has a lot to figure out because now he has more bodies to work with in the front court. But I don't know if the Warriors are done. It seems like they're done, right? Do you guys think he's done? He's done. Do you guys think the Warriors are done? Like Mike Dunleavy's done? Like we're not going to go for Andrew Wiggins. We're not going to go for, just another wing. Somebody with size, 6'6" and up. Somebody with a 7-foot wingspan. Somebody with better footwork than Moses Moody. Moses Moody is slow, like on his feet. His reaction time is slower than Will Richard. Will Richard is a rookie. Will Richard has better defensive instincts than Moses Moody does. That's not good enough if you're Moses Moody. You're in your 5th year, right? So, and Moses Moody lacks versatility as a defender. If you put him at small forward, you're gonna be small. You're gonna suffer. If he switches onto a big, you can forget about that possession. He's gonna lose that possession. He's gonna get outworked. He's gonna get outboxed. He's gonna get out rebounded, and he's gonna get scored on. And these are the things that you can't rely on. You have to understand like what it takes to be a title contending team. You need absolute dogs, and you need guys that are, more capable and more consistent. And I don't see that from Moses Moody, man. I wanted to see that from Moses. I was fighting for him early in the season to get into the starting lineup and all these things, if you remember, right? But he's just not consistent at the end of the day. What was that game last night? Moses, Moody, and Pods. What are you doing? The defense is holding up for you. You have to step up on offense. You have to show something. You have to create for yourselves. You have to create for others as the starting backcourt. Literally, I watched whenever it's Pods and Moses Moody in the starting lineup, I'm just like, this is the worst backcourt in the entire league. And this is the kind of talent that you're putting around Steph Curry and saying like these guys are going to be in the starting lineup next to Steph Curry, and you're asking him to compete for a title with those guys in the starting lineup? Are you serious? That's crazy. So I think the Warriors are in a better spot than they were earlier today. They traded Kuminga. Kuminga was never going to, even if he eventually, let's say they didn't trade him and eventually he came back into the rotation, right? And let's say he goes back to some of the things that he was doing in his 3rd year, 4th year, right? When he was, at times he was in the starting lineup, he's averaging, 20 points per game or something like this, right? But the Warriors can't find consistency because he's an inconsistent player. And defensively, right? No matter what he does for you offensively, there's too much missing on defense, right? And then he plays the same position as Guy Santos. So, Steve Kerr, he's going to end up benching Guy Santos and, playing freaking Kuminga out of position at the power forward spot. And then the Warriors suck, right? They're not good enough. They can't rebound. They can't box out. They can't cover the basics and the fundamentals and the building blocks of what makes you a contending team, right? That's what happens when you put in a player that can't do his job at that position, where that position entails certain requirements, right? These positions exist for a reason, and each position has a role to play. You never listen to Steve Kerr talking about the game of basketball as positionless, right? Like the guy is trying to reinvent the wheel, and it's just like, how is that going for you the last 4 years? He's one of the worst coaches in the entire league with this concept. So Kuminga was never going to be it. And then if they went into the playoffs, if you can't play defense possession by possession, don't expect to be a real playoff team. If you have guys like that in your rotation, that is your weakness. That's where the other team is going to take advantage of you and abuse you. You think about like the Rocket series, and you look at like Jalen Green. That's a young guy. He has a lot of talent, but he's inconsistent and he's not a defender. And when you have guys like that, playing a key role for your team, those guys are going to hurt you. And better teams are going to take advantage of guys like that, right? That's what the Warriors would have been, if they held on to Kuminga. They probably I don't even know they make it, into the play-in if they did that. So ultimately, Kuminga's been out of the rotation for a while. If he ended up staying with this team, obviously they were going to bring him back into the rotation. But we've been trying this for 5 years, and it hasn't worked. So it's been more than time to get away from the situation. And they're finally away from it. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that this situation is finally over. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. It was holding up the team. It disallowed them to fully focus on the things that they need to fix. Nothing can ever truly be fixed as long as players that are incapable remain in rotation, right? I'm always looking at the defense first and foremost. Is your structure sound for you to be a title contending team? And if you're not, then I'm going to fight for that player to be off the Warriors. That's what I did, a decade ago when the Warriors had David Lee as their starting power forward. And David Lee was a proven numbers guy, 20 and 10, right? Mr. 20 and 10, David Lee. Made the All-Star team over Steph Curry. Can you believe that? And David Lee was garbage, man. David Lee couldn't guard. He was a cone. Defensively, he was garbage. And I'm just suffering for 3 years and just constantly talking about the need for the Warriors to trade this guy. He is wasting Steph Curry's potential by being the primary guy, the pick and roll guy. And back in the day under Mark Jackson, you played pick and roll with David Lee. David Lee is either trying to finish, a layup at the rim, or he's the one taking a mid-range shot, which means Steph Curry's out of the play. So they're wasting a lot of possessions on David Lee, who's not good enough on defense, right? So he's hurting the team in that way, and then he's taking possessions away from Steph Curry. A lot of people think that, Steve Kerr came into the team and he changed everything. No, actually, what really happened was that David Lee got hurt in the preseason, and then they had no choice but to stick Draymond Green into that starting role at the power forward spot, and then the Warriors were unstoppable, and that's where everything started. It wasn't Steve Kerr's magic. It was the fact that they replaced a non-defender in David Lee with an ultimate defender in Draymond Green, right? And then instantly they became the best team in the entire league. Nobody thought that the Warriors would be that team going into that season, right? So that's what defense can do for you. Even though Draymond, is half the scorer that David Lee is. Draymond was never going to be a 20 and 10 guy, right? And yet Draymond was so worlds apart better than a David Lee. Right? I put it that way. David Lee is not a real player in the playoffs. Like he made DeAndre Jordan, look like Bill Russell in the playoffs. Right? So that's what it looks like when you bring incapable defenders into the playoffs and think that you're going to, go far in the playoffs. It's not going to happen. So any player that's like that, I'm always going to be against that player. It's always defense first. And so having said that, Kuminga is gone. Porzingis is in. Buddy Hield is gone. So that takes the opportunity away for Steve Kerr to run to these ridiculous 4-guard lineups that are impossible to win with Buddy Hield playing small forward, power forward, right? So that nightmare is finally over. And Buddy Hield, ever since he got back into the rotation, he has been playing better than what he did in the first half of the season. But ultimately, he's an inconsistent player. He's goofy. He'll give you some really good plays, and then he'll follow it up with some really goofy plays. And that's not going to work. So players like that you need to get rid of, especially when they cost you $10 million. So this is a really good thing. Yeah, you got rid of 2 players that you didn't want in rotation, and you're bringing in a guy who won a title for the Celtics. So that's a great addition. Obviously, the only problem is, what is his health condition going to be? All we can do is pray that the Warriors can figure out a way to keep him healthy so that he'll be useful to the Warriors, right? So, yeah, at this point, guys, I think if, and I'd love to hear from you guys as well at this point in terms of what lineups can the Warriors play, right? For me, I'm thinking Draymond has to be benched at this point. I think it should be like Guy Santos, Al Horford, and KP in the starting lineup. I think they would have amazing size. I think Santos has shown that he has better perimeter defense at this point than Draymond does, and that's what's required at the small forward spot. I just don't see how Draymond is suddenly going to shift over to small forward, right? So I think that's what should happen, but I don't know. I don't know that Steve Kerr is going to do that. That's the problem. Off bench, Post, and Dre. Right. So I don't. That would be perfect, actually. If Steve Kerr starts Al Horford and Porzingis in the starting lineup, and then bring Draymond and Quentin Post off the bench, yeah, I think that would be. I mean, think about that. That would be incredible. That would be an incredible, all 48 minutes of power forward and center at all times, and that's a huge thing for the Warriors. As long as they stay big throughout the course of the entire game, the odds of the Warriors winning those games is really good with Steph Curry, healthy. Keith, Kristaps Porzingis, I wonder, will he play a single game for the Warriors? I think he'll actually play very soon, because he was actually supposed to play the last game and he was a late scratch, and he's questionable. He was questionable for tomorrow's game for the Hawks. Well, now that he's traded, obviously, no, but he was on track to return, right? So that's the good news. I think Porzingis will be ready to play for the Warriors when he joins the team. So I definitely think that we can look forward to that. We just have to pray that whatever health condition that keeps debilitating him, that gets resolved, because we don't know that's a giant question mark. We could possibly see him debut against the Lakers. Yeah, we'll see. And obviously, we still have the Steph Curry situation. Curry's not going to play tomorrow. The runner's knee situation that's definitely concerning, because if you don't take care of that, it can become chronic. And if a knee condition becomes chronic for Steph Curry, it's over. So this is actually a really important injury and a pivotal time in Steph Curry's career. He has to take care of this. If he has to sit out a couple of weeks to get this right, that's what he's got to do. And I pray that he doesn't, rely on like NSAIDs or something, like Advil or something, ibuprofen. Like, this is, I used to take that like candy. Before I even play basketball, I would just pop a couple of Advils so that I don't feel any pain. I was like, oh, this is genius. Why wouldn't everybody do this? And that was, well over a decade ago, when information wasn't as prevalent. And it turns out the ibuprofen, this kind of stuff, can actually stop your meniscus, your cartilage, from healing properly. It can actually deter them from functioning. And for me, I ended up my cartilage ended up thinning, and actually like a part of it is missing in the middle. So that's the last thing I want to see happen to Steph Curry, man. Steph Curry is about to turn 38. He's still playing amazing basketball. He's still you go into the playoffs, I would trust nobody more than Steph Curry as a number one option. The way he scares defenses, like, it's unmatched. Nobody in the NBA, you go to the playoffs, and no player can command the attention that Steph Curry commands. No player can move a defense the way Steph Curry moves it, right? Nobody can just bend the entire defense and force a center to come up and you know, kind of play away from their traditional roles of what is it, drop coverage, right? That's it. That's been all of NBA history is bigs play drop coverage. They don't have to go out to the 3-point line and cover the 3-point line. That's how Steph Curry changed the game. And he still does that, right? So let's say, for example, the Warriors run into a matchup against the Nuggets, for example. I mean, how do you think Team USA beat Serbia in the playoffs? Is Jokic is not even guarding Steph Curry. Curry is getting practice 3-point shots, right? So and then he's completely going off, and then he's beating that team. You know, I don't, you know. So a matchup between like the Nuggets and the Warriors. If the Warriors are built correctly, I'm taking Steph Curry over Jokic every time. And so, despite the fact that Steph Curry is his age, his play hasn't diminished. His defense hasn't diminished. And so you can continue to build around him to try to contend for titles. That's why I put up this fight, because I believe in that ability for him to, you know, beat any team. You look at the, you know, playoffs last season, they played the Rockets in the first round. The Rockets were the 2nd seed. They were the number 2 seed, right? And like I said, the Warriors should have been able to take care of that team in 5. It only went to 7 because you're starting Potts and Buddy Hield next to Steph Curry. There's no defense, and you're playing a tiny lineup, and you're making it like 10 times more difficult for the Warriors to compete against that team and beat that team. You know, they're playing giant lineups, and Steven Adams is going to town against these freaking midgets. So if that stuff wasn't happening, you know, it's like Steph Curry against Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün. Are you serious? Think about that for a second. So, and even against like SGA, I don't believe there's anybody on the Thunder that can actually stop Steph Curry in a 7-game series. So that's why I have confidence against that team as well. But the Warriors have to be built better. They have to be built right. And I mean, they're close now. They're close. If only, you know, Jimmy Butler didn't get injured. I mean, can you guys imagine if the Warriors ended up doing this KP trade and Jimmy Butler was still healthy? Where would you have ranked the Warriors in that scenario? Because the Warriors, they were just playing big away from dominating the season. And Steve Kerr just simply didn't do that. But you throw in KP into the mix, obviously, you know, at that point, it's impossible to go too small. It's literally impossible. So up there, if JB was healthy, so why the Warriors promised Butler they're not trading him? I don't know. I don't know why they're overly loyal to him, but there also has to be the right deal. I don't think the Bucks were interested in an injured 37-year-old Jimmy Butler and that contract. So that's probably why. But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is at this point. I feel like Jimmy Butler, he'll never be the same again. Like coming off this injury, coming back at the age of 37, and he was already showing decline defensively this season. And so I just don't see how he's going to come back and still be like a starting caliber player for the Warriors. It's a tough one. Greetings from Costa Rica. Hello, hello. Honestly, I want to read and respond to all of your comments, but it's going like kind of fast. I can't. If we still had Butler with KP, Steph, we would have had a shot. I believe that as well. Honestly, I feel like they still have a shot. You know, that's how I feel about Steph Curry. When you give him enough pieces, he needs 8 reliable rotational pieces. That's what happened in the 21-22 season. He had 8. He had 8 reliable guys. And they didn't all have to be starters, right? Like Otto Porter Jr., not a starter. GP2, not a starter. Bielisa, not a starter, right? It just Jordan Poole, not a starter. ASD NQ1RV, welcome. But yeah, you have reliable pieces that are strong in their roles, strong in what they do, know exactly what they need to do on both ends of the floor, right? That's what you get when you have veterans. And yeah, that was good enough for the Warriors to win a title. Steph Curry, his second best player was Andrew Wiggins. Name me another NBA player, an NBA superstar that can win a title with Andrew Wiggins as his number 2. Is there anybody in the NBA that can go and win a title with Andrew Wiggins as their number 2? I don't think so. But Steph Curry was able to do that. And so you're giving him Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton. I mean, that's like that's veterans right there. Those are reliable players in the playoffs. You know exactly what you can expect from these guys, right? You have a ton of defensive ability there. Yeah, even with Quentin Post, who's like a third stringer, a third option at the center position now for the Warriors, right? That's incredible depth. And so, if they can just curtail and limit the role of Pods, especially in the playoffs, right? Let's count this up. We got Steph Curry, DeAnthony Melton, Porzingis, Al Horford. Let's just add Draymond there because he's still there. That's 5. Who else we got? Guy Santos, Quentin Post, GP2. That's 8 right there. And then you still have Will Richard, Moses Moody. I don't want to add Pods in there because that's like 10 plus right there, right? And you don't play 10 guys in the playoffs. You play like 8 or 9. So that's enough bodies. I just need one more wing. Somebody who is more reliable as a POA than like DeAnthony Melton. Somebody who's like, an Andrew Wiggins type, like a Derrick Jones Jr. type. Somebody who's got a lot of wingspan, a lot of defensive ability, a lot of recovering ability, right? To the 3-point shooters. You have like, you got like slow ass Moses Moody trying to contest a shot. He never does. Basically, Pods has a negative wingspan. Like, come on. There's nobody at the wing positions that can like properly like recover out to a shooter. You need that. So that's the one thing that they're missing, and they need to go and get that. Even if they need to pick up somebody from the buyout market or whatever they need to do, they need to pick up one more wing, right? And Santos, you guys saw Santos recover to a 3-point shooter last night. I think it was Jared McCain. Jared McCain is in the corner. He's about to shoot a 3, and Santos recovers out to him and blocks his shot. That's the kind of wingspan that we're talking about. That's the kind of size. It's the kind of hustle and ability where, somebody is at the wing position and they can recover out to a shooter and make it difficult, right, on defense, right? So these are the kinds of pieces that the Warriors need. And Guy Santos, like his development this season has been incredible in terms of like his two-way ability, his ability to score, his ability to create offense even, right? He can penetrate, draw the defense, make smart passes. Now he's got the quick little pump fake going on, and he's pump faking everybody to death. He's like getting 2 guys to jump at once and, getting easy buckets at the rim. I mean, this is incredible. So, and he's being consistent more at the 3-point line, right? I was really disappointed actually when the season started and he wasn't hitting his threes. I was like, what did you do in the offseason? Why didn't you work on this? This is one of the biggest key things that's going to allow you to stay in rotation. So when he wasn't hitting his shots, it's like, it's disappointing. But now look at him. The fight was worth it. You guys know I've been fighting for Guy Santos to get in rotation all season long. Instead of like Pods is in rotation and Buddy Hield is in rotation, and they're playing 4-guard lineups, and nobody can rebound, and nobody can box out, nobody can guard somebody that's bigger than them inside the paint. Like all these things, it's horrible. It's unwatchable basketball. So, that's what I've been fighting against for the last 4 years against Steve Kerr, right? And Guy Santos has been a guy who's been, a problem solver in these problems that have been created by Steve Kerr, and that's why it's awesome to see him in rotation now, even last night and even in some of these other games. Like they need to go to Santos. Like they were closing the previous game with like Pods, Melton, and Buddy Hield 3-guard fucking effing lineup. That is BS. We don't want to see that because that's not competitive basketball for the Warriors. You're handicapping them. You're making it harder for them to win games. An insane coach the Warriors have, man. Jeffrey Rosary, thank you for the donation. Trade Dre Zingis to Pacers for Pascal and Mathurin. That would be amazing. Then you could get a center from buyout market. Well, I'm not sure that Siakam is available. I'm not sure that. Why would the Pacers do that? Why would they want to trade for a 35-year-old Draymond Green who's been diminishing for a much younger Pascal Siakam in his prime? If the Warriors can go and do that, I mean, I'll take it. I'll take Pascal Siakam over Draymond at this point. Are you kidding me? I would love that, but it's not realistic. Yeah, I think the only way the Warriors would have been able to get rid of Draymond was for Giannis, and that's just completely off the table. How embarrassing for Joe Lacob, huh? You held on to Kuminga all these years. You refused to give him up for OG Anunoby. You refused to give him up for Caruso. You refused to give him up for Siakam. You refused to give him up for all kinds of pieces. Lauri Markkanen. Like there were so many pieces that they could have traded this guy for. And finally they trade him away. And it ends up being, Kristaps Porzingis with a medical condition. That's not what necessarily like. I really wish they went after Michael Porter Jr. harder. That's the guy that they needed to go after. GT 202, exactly right. Not for MPJ, exactly for MPJ. I think Michael Porter Jr. would have been such a powerful player for the Warriors, especially if they can keep him in that small forward spot where he's a beast. He's 6'10" at the small forward spot. If you guys remember when the Nuggets were title contenders, the Warriors had problems with Michael Porter Jr. They couldn't guard him. And he was matched up against Klay Thompson, and he was making Klay Thompson look bad. He was just outplaying Klay. He was making the shots that Klay couldn't make, right, at the 3-point line. And he was getting the rebounds and doing all this extra stuff that Klay could no longer do. You know what I mean? So his size is huge. His ability to rebound, his ability to stay connected. He's not an elite defender by any measure, right? He's more of a connector than a guy that you rely on for defense, right? But offensively, you put his gravity next to Steph Curry's gravity, and it's like, man, that's like the Splash Brothers all over again. And of course, and you get automatically bigger, much bigger, right? So you play a lineup like, Michael Porter Jr., Guy Santos, Quinton Post, Al Horford, Draymond, take your pick. And that sounds like a really powerful lineup to me. So that's why I thought actually he would have been a much better fit for what the Warriors do, even more so than Giannis. Quinsu Ocha, what's going on, brother? Green, Moody, Pods for Michael Porter Jr. Add Simmons free agent. I mean, that's like a dream scenario. So far, the Warriors have gotten rid of Kuminga and Buddy Hield. Oh, and Trace Jackson Davis as well, right? And the two other pieces that the Warriors could trade away to improve their situation is literally Potts and Moody. They're rotational players in the NBA for sure, but they're more like average players. They're not like, they don't excel. They're not elite, right? Moody has shown some potential of being an elite 3-point shooter, but at the end of the day, like he goes on lulls, man. And when he goes on lulls, it lasts like a month. You can't have that. You know, if you're gonna if you're gonna be consistent, you can go through inconsistent stretches, like 2-3 game stretches, right, where you're struggling to shoot, but it can't be like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That's crazy, right? And then your defense is like sometimes you're good, sometimes you're not. Right? These are not the types of players that you try to contend for a title with, guys. Right? You can like Moses Moody and still acknowledge that he may not be good and quite good enough to rely on in the playoffs to be able to guard just about anybody, right? If you have a matchup where you're playing against OKC and you're relying on Moses Moody to be the primary defender against a guy like, SGA, are you sure? Are you sure that's what you want to do? You can like Moses Moody and still acknowledge that maybe that role is a little too big for Moses Moody. You see what I'm saying? The same thing with Pods, man. Like Pods, he can be an effective player coming off somebody's bench over time, right? And he can continue to develop his 3-point shot and all these things. But that doesn't mean that he's ever going to be some viable, super important, piece to try to contend for a title with. I just don't. I just think that he's so easily replaceable. I think he's literally replaceable by, like, Pat Spencer can replace him. And Seth Curry can so easily replace. It's not even. Seth Curry is a much better basketball player than Potts is currently. Okay, and then you have DeAnthony Melton. Obviously, I mean is that even I'd rather have Will Richard in rotation than Potts. Like, Will Richard has better defense than Pods. It's plain and simple. If you see like his rate of pickpocketing when it comes to Will Richard, I mean, he's special at that, right? He's still an imperfect player as well, especially off the ball. He has some of the similar issues that like Moses Moody has. A little bit indecisive at times, but his ability to POA, guard somebody, and pick somebody up from the half court and just stop them from dribbling the ball. And if they do dribble, just, pick them off. How many times have we seen Will Richard pick somebody off, get out in transition, and get a dunk all by himself? I want you to think, how many times in the last 5 years have you seen Moses Moody do that? As a matter of fact, I think Will Richard has had more breakaway dunks after stealing the ball from somebody this year than Moses Moody has had in his entire career. I think Will Richard has already matched Moses Moody in terms of stripping somebody and getting out in transition by himself and getting an open dunk. You know how valuable that is? To stop the other team's best ball handler like that, right? That's demoralizing. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's powerful, right? And he can do that consistently in a way that Moses Moody can't. A lot of it is because Will Richard has better like instincts, his reaction time, his anticipation. You guys know I like to talk about the anticipatory ability of the defenders. The more you can anticipate what is going to happen before it happens, well, you can move quicker because you know what's going to happen, right? That's how that determines how elite of a defender you can be, right? And then obviously you have to have strength, you have to be strong, you have to be able to keep guys in front of you, on top of those instincts, right? So it's not just instincts. You have to have some physical attributes. Like, a lot of things go into it. And and so Will Richard has some of that. He's a champion at the college level, and that is relevant. So yeah. But at the same time, he's still a rookie, right? He's a rookie, and he's not somebody necessarily that you might want to overly rely on in the playoffs. Maybe you rely on him for short stretches and segments, but you can't rely on him for like half the game or something. That's a lot for a rookie. But he can develop into that player beyond the season. That's what's exciting about Will Richard. But for this season, you want somebody that's better than Will Richard, and you want somebody who's better than DeAnthony Melton, who's coming off a major surgery. And he's looked really good offensively, thank God. But defensively, while he's capable of looking really good on defense, and he plays much bigger than his size, I've seen him get burned a lot. I've seen him just get blown by, right? Just somebody has a first step and they're blowing by him. I've seen that a bunch of times from him this season in a way that I haven't seen from him last season. So that it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens more than I would like, right? Like I said, my standards when it comes to players on this team is like through the roof, like at the highest. I need the highest level from whoever the Warriors are relying on the most, right? And right now, Melton, they're relying on him as like the number one POA guy. He is the number one POA guy for the Warriors right now as a two-way guy. I mean, it used to be GP2, but because Melton is more two-way, they have to rely on him more. And it's hard to have both of those guys out there at the same time because of their size, right? They're both 6'2". And then you have Steph Curry, who's also 6'3", right? So, and if you go any smaller than that, now you have a huge size issue. There's a huge deficit there, size-wise, right? If GP2 could play like, I guess kind of like Melton, because Melton is able to fight against bigger bodies in a way that I think GP2 cannot. GP2 is, he's a POA guy. He stays in front of guys. He makes sure that he's not getting burned by anybody. He's not getting, nobody has a first step over him and they're just blowing by him, right? And he just keeps guys in front of him. That's the most important thing as a POA. You keep guys in front of you and you force them into difficult shots. That's what we want to see from the Warriors defense. So the perimeter defender. That's why Andrew Wiggins was so valuable, right? Because he keeps guys in front of him and he has that wingspan, and it's hard to get a shot up over that guy. That's why when the Warriors played, SGA a bunch of times, like SGA had a lot of trouble against Andrew Wiggins' defense, right? Because he's not blowing by Andrew Wiggins, so he's always going to have to make a difficult shot over him. And again, that wingspan, that 7'1" wingspan that Andrew Wiggins has, that's what's so valuable to the Warriors. That's why a lot of people were apprehensive about trading him away. All right, the Warriors won the title with Andrew Wiggins being the primary stopper of the other team's best players. Ja Morant, Luka Doncic. Who else was there? Jason Tatum. Who else was there? I don't think the Nuggets had really, because they were missing Jamal Murray that year, but that's a huge reason why the Warriors were able to win the title, is because Andrew Wiggins was the guy who was able to stop a majority of the other team's best players. Not stop, but limit them from going off and doing whatever they want, getting whatever they want. If you let's put it this way: if the Warriors go into the playoffs and you run into a team and you can't stop their best player, then you have no assurance that you're going to beat that team. Your defense has to be good enough to be able to limit the other team's best player more than the other team can. That's a prerequisite. You need that. That is a requirement to compete for titles. If you don't have that, the odds of you going all the way to the finals, not good. no playoffs, it's over. It's so negative. Somewhat like a lot, like, there's a lot of negativity. I understand Jimmy Butler, he's out for the season. What a devastating injury that turned out to be. It's something that I have been warning about for a long time. You put this wear and tear on these older guys. You're forcing them to do too much. You're supposed to make the game easier for your veterans and your older guys, right? And Steve Kerr persistently makes the game harder for them, forcing Steph Curry to be, at the shooting guard spot, completely undersized, 6'3". Like, he's a great defender, and he's a great connective defender, but you don't want him to be one of your primary defenders. You don't want to put a 3-guard lineup of Buddy Hield, Potts, and Steph Curry, and Steph Curry is the best defender among those guys. What are you doing to him? Right? And then on top of that, you're putting Jimmy Butler at the 4, and you're asking him to protect these 3 guards. And then on top of that, you're asking Draymond Green to protect this tiny lineup, 3-guard lineup, Jimmy Butler too small at the 4. Everybody is at a deficit. Everybody's undersized. Everybody is being taxed physically. Everybody's being asked to do more inside the paint that they should, right? Even the guards, they have to get in there and fight against these giants. They can't even do it. So that's why it's devastating, right? Because these players' livelihoods are on the line. Their legacies are on the line, right? Their careers are on the line. Their ability to earn money is on the line. Their reputation among the fan base is on the line. If you do these things and the Warriors don't look as good as they should, that affects Steph Curry's legacy. That affects Jimmy Butler's legacy. That messes with the reputation of Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, saying that, oh, they're not good enough. Oh, they're too old, right? You see all these narratives pop up because they're being put in these difficult situations, right? And that is purely the doing of Steve Kerr and nobody else. So he is actively sabotaging the careers and the earning potential and the, reputation, everything. These players, their livelihood is being put in jeopardy because Steve Kerr wants to do whatever it is that he feels like doing. It is really, truly disgusting. And so, yeah, I'm gonna continue to tell the truth, speak the truth on that, and continue to fight against him whenever he does do these absolutely awful things. But the front office slightly improved the situation, in a way where it's harder for Steve Kerr to put out some of these insane lineups. I would trade Pods, Trace Jackson, and a first-round pick for Ja Morant. So, yeah, I mean, you don't want to bring another point guard onto the Warriors. Like, some people, sometimes they talk about bringing in another guard, and it's just like, you're going to put Ja Morant next to Steph Curry? Like, where's the defense there? You're going to have a backcourt of Ja Morant and Steph Curry. You can try to go buck wild on offense, but you can't stop anybody. So all you're doing is trading baskets. And trading baskets don't win you titles. And they don't even win you playoff series. And yes, TJD is already gone. I was hopeful of seeing Trace play a role for the Warriors in the playoffs, even in just like 10-minute segments, right? Because he's capable of holding down a defense. Like, he's capable of playing the anchor role, especially off the bench, right? But right now, the Warriors' situation at the center spot has drastically improved. Right? You got KP, you got Al Horford, you got Quinton Post. That's a lot of ability at the center spot. That's a lot of two-way ability at the center spot, and that's really huge, literally. So we can't. Like, it feels like a lot of people are feeling hopeless, and a trade for Porzingis is not, That's not what we were looking for. But again, the Warriors are in a better spot than they were before this trade happened. And so I wouldn't get down in the dumps just yet. We have to see what this looks like. I'm not sure we're going to be able to see it this week. Steph Curry, obviously, right? He needs to heal up first. Porzingis is very close to returning, I'm telling you. I think he will play very soon, right? And physically, he's okay. Physically, right, in terms of just playing basketball, he's okay. What's not okay is that like this illness of his, it keeps popping up. That's what's not okay. But again, the fact that he's gotten back to a point where he's well enough to try to come back and play, right? Which is what he was about to do. Now he's going to do that for the Warriors. I followed Porzingis a little bit this season, and he's had some injuries, but his biggest issue has been the illness. That's why he's been missing a whole bunch of time. So we'll see what happens with this. But they need to do another trade. They can't be. I have a feeling they're done. Last season, they traded for Jimmy Butler, and I'm like, awesome. Now you need to recoup what you've lost in Andrew Wiggins, right? Because Jimmy Butler is not the defender that Andrew Wiggins is. You just lost your best POA. You need to go out there and do something about that if you're the Warriors front office. And they never went and did that, which is why you ended up with Pods and Buddy Hield in the starting lineup for the playoffs. How ridiculous, right? So they can't make that same mistake again. They need to go out and get one more trade done. So I just don't know if they have enough assets at this point. I mean, I feel like they do. They still have their picks. I don't think any picks were given up in this trade. As a matter of fact, they gained a second-round pick by trading away TJD. So if they need to include a pick, and whatever their young assets to try to go and get an Andrew Wiggins, they need to go and try for that. They can't just stop and say, "Oh, we got KP, we're done." Why are you so satisfied? If you're the Warriors front office, they're too satisfied for no good reason. You should be doing everything in your power to maximize what you have. You are a what, $10 billion organization? You're worth so much. How can you not invest everything into this team? How can you say that you're all in on the situation, but then you're like lazy? It doesn't make any sense. So KP has bad ability, unavailability, BS. Stop pissing on me, JP, and telling me it's raining. Listen, at the end of the day, any of you guys, like, you're free to feel how you feel. It's I'm just telling you what it is for me. And always you can take it or leave it, right? I'm not out here saying that you must feel this way, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're all free to have your own thoughts and opinions. I'm just giving mine, with the context of having covered this team, for as long as Steph Curry's been on this team. So, yeah. I don't know if Miami wants Pods, Moody. I mean, Miami, they have a very similar situation as the Warriors. They have a lot of young pieces as it is, right? Even with the Ware situation with Spo likes to run small lineups also, right? He's also like a little bit of a charlatan there. And like, he puts Andrew Wiggins at the power forward spot. Like, it's just freaking stupid. I'm sorry. You're stupid if you think that Andrew Wiggins' best position is power forward. What are you doing to the guy? Guy weighs like 210, and you're playing him power forward? Ridiculous, man. The guy started his career as a shooting guard, and then he eventually moved over to small forward. And now you're permanently playing him at power forward. I would love to pry Andrew Wiggins away from the Heat, But they have so many young guys, right? They have Hawkes, right? Hawkes Jr. as well. Same draft as Potts, and he's definitely better than Potts. I don't see why the Heat would be interested in a player like Potts, right? Especially they have Davion Mitchell at point guard. They can still get MPJ, but we would trade Dre. I would. Oh my gosh, man. Trying to think. If they traded for Michael Porter Jr., they would have to put Michael Porter Jr. at small forward. Well, let's say I would prefer to have a lineup of Michael Porter Jr., Al Horford, and KP. That would be, just from sheer size standpoint, like it would be so imposing. And then you look at, like, you think about how much spacing. Al Horford spaces the floor. KP spaces the floor. Michael Porter Jr. spaces the floor. Steph Curry spaces the floor. I mean, the defense with the other team, I don't know how you would guard the Warriors. Everybody can shoot in that lineup, and everybody has size. So whatever deficiencies they might have from the perimeter, and if you stick Melton in there, right, then you have 5 guys out, and oh my gosh, right? That sounds so super intriguing to me, right? But it almost feels like a pipe dream. I just don't see why in God's name would the Nets trade away Michael Porter Jr. and take Draymond Green. Like, why would they do that? Right? The Nets are not. I don't think the Nets are stupid. Right? They're trying to rebuild. You're gonna trade for Draymond, right? How do they make that work? They need to add like Moody and Pods, a couple of picks, and maybe you add Draymond in there just to match the salaries, and then maybe they can do something else with Draymond, because I think there's only 1 year left on his deal. But whether it's Michael Porter Jr., whether it's Andrew Wiggins, you just need to see the Warriors go and get one more player with size and wingspan. I need a guy with wingspan, and again, it's got to be a veteran who's been there, done that, is a dog out there, right? Moses Moody has a 7-foot wingspan, but his footwork, he's too slow, right? So that wingspan isn't nearly as effective as it could be because he's late on the contests. So if he's quicker on the contests and he gets on shooters, and his timing is better, right, and he's quicker on his feet, then he'd be able to block shots way better because he has great wingspan. But because he's slow, the effectiveness of the wingspan doesn't translate the way that you would want from like an elite player. Yeah. So how do I feel about the Warriors right now? I know based on the comments that I'm seeing, a lot of people don't feel too good, right? A lot of uncertainties around KP for sure. I understand that. I like that the Warriors are active and they didn't wait until the final hour of the deadline. We have some level of clarity in the sense of like it's hard to imagine Steve Kerr running a 4-guard lineup at this point, and the 4-guard lineups is the Warriors, one of the Warriors' biggest problems. Right? You notice like after Jimmy Butler went down and Steph Curry was still healthy, the Warriors were playing competitive basketball. They were still playing competitive basketball, especially when Steve Kerr was going to some of these bigger lineups, and including Guy Santos, right? You guys saw that. Like I wasn't dreaming that, right? If Steph Curry didn't get hurt against the Pistons, I think they would have been able to beat that team in the fourth quarter. I think they would have made a tough comeback and they would have won that game. So, and the Pistons they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, right? So, and even without Steph Curry, they kept it competitive, which means they have foundational pieces for the Warriors to continue to be competitive. And they just got a little bit bigger. In some way, they got a lot bigger, right? You get rid of Buddy Hield and you bring in KP. I mean, that's a world of difference right there. Buddy Hield and KP. Guys, can we contextualize 6'4" Buddy Hield in 3 and 4 guard lineups, or Kristaps Porzingis next to Al Horford to form like a much bigger and imposing front court? You have better defense. You have better defense on the interior. You have better offense. You have more reliable offense. You have more points in the paint. You have better rebounding. I mean, other than the fact that like the health concerns, like, and we'll see, right? In terms of personnel, the Warriors got way better. I don't think you can deny that. I don't think you can. I mean, this is just facts, right? Kuminga wasn't playing, and you turned him and Buddy Hield into a champion, albeit a partly compromised champion. I mean, we'll see. At the end of the day, he's an expiring deal as well. So the Warriors will be, if things don't work out with him this season, you can move him for something else. Right? That's a very easy contract to move. So that's another plus. But this season, the best we can hope for is for the Warriors to just compensate as much as possible, right? Because no matter how you slice it, you lost a $60 million player. And that makes things very difficult, obviously, right? So the other option, guys, could have been like the Warriors did nothing. The word was that if they're not going to get Giannis, then Kuminga is going to stay put, and the Warriors are not going to make a move, right? You guys remember that? But a move was made. So only option to get Wiggs is give up Green and Pods. No way Joe and Mike will do this. Yeah, I mean, the front office, they finally got rid of Kuminga, so there is no more, I guess, future plan unless they still think that Pods is the future. And if you still think that Pods is the future, like your scouting is a joke. I don't understand. Like you're a multi-billion-dollar organization. You can't hire proper scouting? It's so bizarre the way the Warriors operate. Don't you think so? I've never seen anything like it. Why does this guy and the chat not understand what Potts syndrome is and that he can play playoff series? It's physically impossible to play consistently. So what I'm going to do once I get off is I'm going to do some research on Potts syndrome and see what that is, because honestly, I don't really know what it is. I've never really actually even heard of it before we found out that Porzingis has it. So Porzingis isn't confirmed to have POTS. Do you just say POTS? POTS? I don't know. Okay, so I'll do my due diligence on whether he actually has that and what are the debilitating factors of that. Obviously, we need to know that to some extent. Bro, I trust Jim's instincts. I appreciate that. I do have strong instincts when it comes to players on the Warriors and whether they're viable or not. And for the most part, almost always, I gotta see them play. I gotta see them in action, and it'll take me a couple of games to determine like how viable or not viable they are. But because I look for the fundamentals, and I see how much of the fundamentals they're able to cover and at what level, right? So you can figure out the viability of a player real fast if you can detect the intangibles, if those things are there or not, right? Um, some of these plays that I show you guys, the film room stuff and my breakdowns, some of it, when you see like some of these players repeatedly making the same mistakes over and over again, right? And it's like, it's not just that game, it happens game by game. And when that happens, what you're seeing from that is that that player doesn't understand why they're failing, right? And as long as they don't have an understanding of what they're doing wrong, that stuff is not going to get fixed that season. So let me give you an example of why I've been so sure about the fact that Kuminga was never going to work for this team. It was the same thing for James Wiseman. I saw Wiseman play like 3-4 games, and I'm just like, that's it. This guy's a project. The Warriors need to get off of him as soon as possible. They need to get off of him this season, in his rookie year. They made the wrong choice. This guy is not going to develop for at least the next 5 years. Like, he is a project, right? And you look at how you determine that is you see what he does first and foremost on the defensive end. Does he have any instincts? What is his timing when he tries to block a shot? Is he even trying to block a shot? Is he in position to block a shot? Is he boxing somebody out while trying to send help, provide help? Does he know or have any idea what the offensive player in front of him is about to do, right? You have to look for these things, and you have to see how the players are guarding based on those instincts and whether they have those instincts or not. And if you see that they don't, that's how you know. You're like, oh, this is not going to get fixed this season. This is something that this player came into the league without having in their bag, right? And if they came into the league without basketball IQ, that's a project. And if you're a team that you want to be a playoff caliber team, and in the case of the Warriors, you want to be a championship caliber team, and you find a piece like this, you get rid of it right away. You don't hold on to that player for an extra year, 2 years, 3 years. You're wasting time. That's poor scouting. If you have poor scouting and you have no understanding of what you're watching, that's what you're going to end up doing. You're going to hold a player for too long, and you're going to end up wasting time. The quicker you're able to fix the mistakes that you made, James Wiseman was a mistake. The quicker you recognize him as a mistake, the quicker you can get off of him, and the quicker you flip him, the rest of the league are slower to catch up as well in terms of what he's going to be or what he's not going to be. And they're willing to give up somebody valuable on that potential, right? So you have to be able to quickly identify that potential and how long it's going to take for that potential to be realized or not realized, right? So that's why I was furious with the Warriors about James Wiseman. It took them 3 years to trade him away. Giant waste of time. Right. And then, how embarrassing, man. You didn't keep GP2 in the offseason. You kept James Wiseman, and then you ended up trading Wiseman for GP2. How embarrassing, right? I'm 16 years old, and I have better ball knowledge than Joe Lacob. I have no doubt that you do. And this is no offense or disrespect to you at all, but saying that you know more basketball than Joe Lacob is not saying much. That's not saying much. That guy is he is a literal casual who should have no say in the Warriors' basketball decisions whatsoever, but he does because he has a lot of money and he owns the team. All right. Unfortunately, he doesn't understand his role as the owner. You hire the guys who understand basketball at a level that you don't, and then you let them do their jobs. You had a guy like that in Jerry West, and you butted heads. You didn't want to pay him enough. You're having back and forth with a legend who has done everything for your franchise, right? And then you lose that guy, and then you're at the mercy of, Bob Myers, who is getting draft advice from Draymond Green, and then you're going and drafting Jacob Evans, right? And you're drafting Jonathan Kuminga, and you're drafting Moses Moody, and you're drafting like all these guys. You look at how many players the Warriors missed in these drafts. Like, it's insane, right? Bob Myers had no idea what he was doing, paid no attention to the details. He literally went into the playoffs with Alfonso McKinney and Quinn Cook in his roster, in his rotation. That's the definition of lazy, right? So Bob Myers, like, when you're getting advice from Draymond Green for drafting, I mean, your front office is cooked. Your front office is cooked. What do I think about Leon's? I don't think that he's ever going to play for the Warriors. That's what I think about him. He's not going to play. The Warriors are too deep in the front court now. You got KP, Al Horford, Quentin Post, Draymond Green, Guy Santos. That's 5 right there at the power forward and center spot. All right. 4 is usually enough. You got 5. So Leon, like, Steve's not going to play he's not going to play this guy as small forward. So pretty much I would say you can forget about this guy, because I mean, they had a guy like this last year too, right? He came up at some point from the G League, and he was like G League Defensive Player of the Year or something, wasn't he? And he ended up doing nothing, right? So I would say this guy is more or less the same. Lakeup, Golden State front office show that they're just Steph Curry merchants. Everybody is a Steph Curry merchant. Everybody. Joe Lacob is one. Steve Kerr is one. Steve Kerr takes the Knicks job instead of the Warriors job. He's fired within that same year. At most, he's fired after that season, and he's never to be heard from again, ever. That would have been Steve Kerr if he didn't coach Steph Curry, right? He went to World Championships and played a 5-guard lineup and failed to get a medal. That's without Steph Curry, by the way. You couldn't even bronze. You thought Brandon Ingram was unplayable. You had Walker Kessler. You had, Bobby Porter. You had all kinds of bigs on your team. And you're like, nope, I'm going to run Josh Hart at the center spot. And then I'm going to run Mikal Bridges at the center spot. That's Steve Kerr for you. Right? And then obviously in the Olympics, Steph Curry saved his ass, right? You're about to lose to Serbia. And Steph Curry saved his ass, literally, against France. Steph Curry, Steve Kerr, and the coaching staff, literally, they're joined together. They're like, what are we going to do? We're in trouble. What are we going to do? This game is close. I don't know what to do. That's the coaching staff. Are you serious? Steve Kerr, Spo, and Bro, unbelievable. And then Steph Curry's like, how about we just run some freaking pick and rolls? Give me the ball. That's what happened. He asked for the ball. He got the ball. And that's all she wrote. People are like, oh, Steph Curry struggled in the Olympics. I wonder why. Steve Kerr says he didn't see the ball. That's why. Steph Curry has to see the ball to be effective. You can't use him like JJ Redick and then wonder why he's struggling. This is turning into a giant rant session here, but yeah, I mean, this is unfiltered. Obviously, this is not like my videos. I do a lot of editing for my videos to not waste anybody's time. I try to get to my points as quickly as possible. Limit the length of the video, right? Just be as efficient as I can be. Whereas this is like, I'll take your questions. I'll take your thoughts. And this is just an active discussion, right? So I wasn't sure how this was going to go. I really appreciate all of you guys being here. And maybe I'll do some of these, maybe like once or twice a week or something like that. Does that sound good to you guys? We prefer longer videos too. I appreciate that. The videos take quite long for me to make as it is. Last season, I didn't do any film breakdown, so I would usually be able to finish editing and posting within like 3 hours after the game, I think. So that was much easier. So if a game starts at 10, it ends at 12:30, and I usually be able to post by like 3:30. Right. So so there was much less wait time for people who are waiting, after the game. But this season, I've committed to putting in the film work on top of that. It takes much longer. That adds like another 3 hours to the equation, which is why I've been posting at a much later time. Kind of stinks. It's just, there's good and bad there, but I think ultimately I want these videos to be like a library for people to be able to go back to see what exactly happened there. And there's no better way to provide evidence for what happened than showing, the film, showing what actually happened. I gotta yell more. I'm done yelling. I've been yelling for the last several years, especially the last 3 years or so. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I've spoken live after games on Twitter Spaces, and I went crazy. And honestly, that adds a lot of stress. I didn't realize how much stress that was putting on me, and I almost regret doing it. I almost regret just yelling and screaming and cursing, because right after a game, I have the raw emotions of having gone through that terrible game, right? Steph Curry scores 60 points against the Hawks, right? And the Warriors end up losing that game because it goes into overtime. Steve Kerr is running a 4-guard lineup. He's got like Klay Thompson at power forward. And the Warriors, the Hawks get out to like an 11-2 lead in the first 2 minutes of overtime. And the Warriors end up losing that game. Steph Curry scores 60 points and the Warriors lose badly in overtime. So imagine the raw emotions of that and me kind of just reacting to it right after the game. Like I was screaming my little head off. And so I don't want to do that. I would prefer to take those emotions out and just convey as much as I can what actually happened and, why things went wrong, and to be able to explain it in a tangible way where everybody can understand through the film work, so that you see the things that I say are rooted in evidence, right? And the actual game. It's not rooted in feelings. It's not rooted in my favoritism of like certain players. My favoritism of players is rooted in their ability on the floor. Are you good enough? Are you championship caliber? Are you a dog? Are you a shutdown guy? Do you have pride? Do you take pride on the defensive end of the floor and say, I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that you are not going to score on me, and I'm going to put in my hardest work possible to make sure that you take the most difficult shot if I'm in front of you, right? That's the kind of dogness and like grit and the championship caliber quality that I'm looking for, right? And even if you're pretty good, there's been a bunch of guys where I'm just like, you're still not good enough, right? And you have to have that mentality. You have to have, I need the best mentality. If you're the Warriors front office, isn't that what you would want them to do? Would you want them to settle on like some of these players because you're like, oh, well, I like that player. Oh, we drafted him. Oh, we feel some sentimentality towards him, right? Like, no. You this is a business, and this is like, we're in the business of winning, right? And everything has to be done with winning in mind. And if you have these players that are no longer good enough to win, then you have to act accordingly. Like Klay Thompson, for example. You come back from 2 devastating injuries and you still want all the shots in the world, and you're going to take all the, selfish shots, and you're just going to chuck them up regardless of, whether there's a defender in front of you or not, and you're going to be taking all these inefficient shots. All you care about is getting your 20 points and getting back to being an all-star and having these like selfish dreams instead of playing for the team, instead of playing for Steph Curry. And you know what I'm saying? If you're not going to do the right things and the necessary things, then you can't be on this team anymore. All right, we can love and appreciate Klay Thompson for everything that he's done for this team, and at the same time realize that he's not the player that he used to be anymore due to those injuries. You're a terrible fan. I mean, that doesn't really matter to me. I care about winning, and I will do whatever it takes to get the Warriors to be at a place where they can win. And if they have key players that are getting in the way of that, well, that's got to be called for what it is. You call it out and then see if they can fix it. If they can't fix it, then you have to move on. You have to move forward. And so we're in the same situation with Draymond now. Draymond has fallen off the map in terms of his effectiveness as a defender. It's every single game. And then he's a goofy passer on top of that. Like his hand-eye coordination, you see from his passes that it's goofy. That's how I know that a lot of the things that Draymond did, like to some of these players, like when he kicks, Steven Adams in the balls, it's like, I don't think he did that on purpose. I think it's the way his body moves. He's a little goofy. Like he's a little off. And you see that in the passes that he makes. Some of these passes that he makes, it's like, it doesn't even make sense. How do you make that pass? Like, how does that go over there? Right? The passes are so errant. And so he's no longer reliable as that guy that is like, the valve when Steph Curry is trapped or something. You know what I'm saying? and so because he's so limited in a lot of different ways, you have to limit his role at bare minimum, right? And if you can trade him for somebody much more viable, somebody like a Michael Porter Jr., Giannis, whatever the case may be, right? Then you have to make that move. And you want to talk about like loyalty as a fan or something. I mean, I think Draymond has been very disloyal. A lot of these guys have been very disloyal if you think about it. Like Klay Thompson. Everything that Klay Thompson was gunning for once he came back from the injury was rooted in selfishness and self-desires. It wasn't on behalf of the team, and him screaming at Steve Kerr and being angry that he's being asked to come off the bench, right? Like that's the kind of thing where it's just like, you're being selfish. Anybody who's been asked to come off the bench for the Warriors, Andre Iguodala didn't have to come off the bench. He's a better player than Harrison Barnes. But he came off the bench. Even Draymond Green, he volunteered to come off the bench. Steve Kerr just hasn't been doing it. And yeah, Klay Thompson, it's just selfish stuff. Like I'm competing for shots with Steph Curry, right? And he's always like fighting for shots. Literally, he's fighting for shots. He's competing for shots with Steph Curry. It doesn't make any sense. And then Draymond, he joins Clutch. He joins LeBron's freaking camp, right? He's done so many traitorous things. The things that he said about Steph Curry over the years, right? He's talking to was it Maverick Carter? Somebody from the Clutch, whatever, right? And they're like talking trash about Steph Curry, and Draymond is just listening and like smiling and laughing about it. How do you do that? And do you guys know that Draymond Green once said that he would die for Steph Curry? I think it was like his first or second year as a starter, Draymond. He literally said that he would die for Steph Curry. And then he joined LeBron and he became Judas. In the 21-22 season, Steph Curry, or Draymond Green rather, Quinn Snyder made a comment about Draymond and how he felt like Draymond should be considered for MVP that year, the 21-22 season, when the Warriors started 18-2. You know what Draymond said to that? Draymond said, yeah, I should be considered for MVP. Do you guys see anything wrong with that? I just don't understand how Draymond could say something like that. You play for Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the MVP of your team. Why are you competing with Steph Curry for MVP? Are you out of your mind? If you're Draymond, like you are a supporting cast of Steph Curry. And you think that you are the MVP over Steph Curry? Are you serious? Like, these are things that you don't say. This is like Dennis Rodman coming out and saying, I should be considered MVP over Michael Jordan. There's like Scottie Pippen coming out and saying, I should be considered for MVP. Does that make any sense to you guys? It doesn't make any sense. And Draymond was... I've just seen so many like traitorous things from this guy, right? And he's such a detriment to the team in so many different ways. He's constantly arguing with the refs, constantly getting into trouble, constantly getting kicked out of games, constantly picking up technical fouls. Like he's more immature than all of their young players. He's supposed to be an example for them. And he screwed the front office with his terrible like draft pick recommendations. Draymond's been a problem for the Warriors in a lot of different ways for a long time. And so I think bare minimum, he needs to be coming off the bench. And, these are not easy decisions. That's the thing. It's like you have to make tough decisions, right? You have to make tough decisions as a decision maker for the Warriors, whether you're a coach, whether you're in the front office. But leaders make tough decisions, right? If it's what's best for the team, you have to make those moves. You don't keep those guys in their positions and places out of sentimentals. You don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. You feel weak towards them. You don't have the guts or the, courage to speak up towards them about what needs to be done, right? It's like there's no leadership there. So, yeah, it's been a huge problem for the Warriors, both front office and the coaching, Steve Kerr. Like, there's no leadership, right? And then you have Steph Curry, who is a very poor leader in that way, all right? Like, you guys remember Kobe Bryant. Like, that guy was a killer. Kobe Bryant, he's like, Andrew Bynum, ship his ass out of here if we can go and get Paul Gasol, right? And it's just like, Steph Curry, I don't know what he's doing behind the scenes, but it hasn't been enough because the front office has actively been willing to screw him over with nonsensical pieces that don't fit, pieces that are too young, pieces that are not good enough. And it's not like one or two of these pieces. It's like 3, 4, 5 of these pieces. Can we still get MPJ for Green Pods and Moody? I mean, if the Warriors have it in their mind, they can still go on and get another trade. But knowing generally how they operate, I just feel like they made 2 moves already. I feel like they're done. I'd be very surprised if they make another move. But what I'm saying is that they need to make another move. Them as currently constructed, I think we can all agree. It's like they're missing something, right? They're missing something. What are they missing? They're missing a wing. They still have too many guards. You didn't get rid of Pods. You didn't get rid of Moody. So you have Moody, you have Pods, you have Will Richard, you have Melton, you have GP2, you have Seth Curry. That's 6 players that need to be in rotation. You have too many guards still. What are you going to do? You have to turn some of those guards into forwards. It's common sense. And they're just not doing it. Anyway, guys, wow, we've been going for almost 2 hours now. Amazing. My throat's getting a little sore from all this talking. And we're at an hour and 55. I think I'll close this at the 2-hour mark. So I will take any questions that you guys have from me if you do. Whatever good questions you have, if I see it, I will address it as much as I can. Warriors need to make a move, another move. 100% they need to make another move. This is not good. This is good, but I question whether it's good enough. The balance is sorely lacking, right? Most teams would prefer to have more forwards than guards, but the Warriors still have too many guards. That's why it makes more sense. Because Steve Kerr has an incessant need to play Pods, somebody who should be playing is not going to be playing. Bros, you still streaming? Yeah, I'm closing in about 5 minutes. I'm still here. What are your thoughts on Trey Murphy? And what would you give up for him? I think you can forget about Trey Murphy. I think the Pelicans are going to keep him. He hit 12 3-pointers in tonight's game. I think he's gotten to a point where he's too good. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to want to give him up for what? Like, you're rebuilding with young players. He's a young player. What are you trying to give him up for? It doesn't make any sense, right? If anything, you try to give up Zion because he's been on the team for a number of years now and he's brought them nowhere, right? So I don't think Michael Porter Jr. is on the table, and I think the asking price will be way too big, and the Warriors are not going to meet it. I think they have much better shot of getting Michael Porter Jr. than Trey Murphy. Yeah. How about Wiggins? I definitely want Wiggins. If they can get Wiggins, I mean, think about that, man. Then they'd have everything. They would have the primary POA and Andrew Wiggins. They would have a secondary POA and DeAnthony Melton. They would have all the size in the world. NKP, Al Horford, Quentin Post. Even if KP is not fully available, well, you have Quentin Post coming off the bench and Al Horford starting, and I think that's plenty good. And if you can add Andrew Wiggins to that equation, now think about the starting lineup of the Warriors in the championship year. They were starting Kevon Looney. It was Steph Curry. Initially, it was Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond, and Kevon Looney. That was their starting lineup. And their bench was, Otto Porter Jr. and GP2. So compare that to this season, right? You're replacing Kevon Looney with KP and Al Horford. You're replacing Kevon Looney and Bielitsa with Al Horford and KP. That is an incredible upgrade, right? And even in certain games where KP might not be available, the combination of Al Horford and Quentin Post, I trust it, right? And so now they don't have an Otto Porter Jr., but they have Guy Santos, right? And then they have Andrew Wiggins back. That would be a hell of a way for the Warriors to absolutely contend for a title if they go and get Andrew Wiggins. So I would love that move. Is the window closed for this season? No, I don't think so. We'll see what happens until the deadline. We'll see if the Warriors make another move. But a lot of people have been saying that this season is dead. I've been saying all along, let's see what happens. They didn't get Giannis, but they got KP. And we'll see to what extent he's available, right? That's going to determine his viability at this point for this season, is like, how available will you be? We'll find out soon. And then if they can miraculously get a secondary trade, put your hands together and put up a prayer that the Warriors are going to make one more move. Because if they do that, oh man, this season is very much still on the table. To be honest with you, and I don't think I've ever said this, but with Jimmy Butler, I had some concerns. I felt like, this is a complicated situation. Even if they went and got Michael Porter Jr. with a healthy Jimmy Butler, that to me there were some problems there because Jimmy Butler's defense has regressed. That's what happens when you get older, right? The reason star players start to diminish and start to lose their minutes as they get older is because they become lesser on the defensive end. And the lesser and lesser they become on the defensive end, the lesser of a role that they end up having, even if they're still capable on offense. That's what usually happens in the NBA. And Jimmy Butler, his defense this season, I noticed, was notably worse than what he was last season. So between 35 and 36, there was like a notable drop-off. So this is the season where Jimmy Butler fully became like a connector and not somebody that you can rely on defense at all. So when you think about a lineup that has Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Michael Porter Jr., and all three of them are considered connective defensive players and not key defensive players. You guys, when I always talk about defensive formations in these lineups, I always look for three surplus defenders, three strong defenders, right? Then you can have two connectors and your defense is going to be really good. But if you have like three connectors, right, and they're not necessarily strong defenders and you only have two surplus defenders, you're literally like a bit of a negative on defense. Right? If you have five players on the floor and three of them are considered like not great defenders, then you have a weak defensive unit. Right? If you have five, you need three guys to be great defenders for your defense, for your team to be good on defense. Does that make sense? Right? It's just a simple numbers game. So when you're talking about Michael Porter Jr., Jimmy Butler, and Steph Curry, I don't like that on defense. I don't love that on defense. There's not enough stoppers there. Jim's first ever live, no way. Yeah, I am here. Not for long. I've been here for a minute now, but I really like the way this one went. And in the future ones, I'm going to try to, because, you know, this is an immediate reaction kind of thing to the things that happened today. But in these other lives that I may be doing in the future, I'll be taking in more of your questions so that we can, you know, have a spirited discussion about whatever. So that's the general plan. Curry got 4 rings. He should have 6. He should have 6 right now, at least. A lot of things went wrong for him to be stuck at 4, right? How different would his reputation, his legacy, how different would it be if he had 6? Yeah, that's crazy. Steve Kerr blew that 15-16 playoffs. They never talk about that. They always blame it on the player. Usually when coaches blow like a 3-1 lead, that goes to the coach, right? And nobody talks about how Steve Kerr used freaking Festus Ezeli in the starting lineup, and he used him down the stretch in the fourth quarter of a Game 7. Festus Ezeli, petrified from the jump. You can see it in his demeanor, his movement, his face. It said it all. Like he couldn't even catch an open pass. The guy was crapping in his pants by the pressure of that situation. And it's understandable. I think it was only a second-year player. And yeah. So, Steve Kerr blew that. Steve Kerr blew that series. Nobody wants. It's insane. Nobody wants to talk about it. But yeah, Steph Curry should have 6. To me, he is a greater. He has greater impact on offense than Michael Jordan does. Michael Jordan has more impact than Steph Curry on defense. So you kind of weigh it out. You weigh the pros and cons of like who's better, you know, how much easier is it to build around these guys, and basically for me, all you have to do is put like capable two-way players around Steph Curry. They don't even need to be stars. He proved that in his last title. There were no stars on that team other than Steph Curry. And he still went and got a title for you. You know why? Because their defense was good. Their defense was number 1 that season. They missed Draymond for half the season, and they were tied for number 1 on defense with the Celtics. That's how you win a title if you're the Warriors. Build defense around Steph Curry because he is the offense by himself. He has proven over and over and over that he can carry your offense. You just got to fortify the defense around him. If you can get stops, Steph Curry will take care of you on offense. Or if your defense is not set, I mean, nobody can truly compete if your defense is not set. Michael Jordan couldn't compete. If you put Jonathan Kuminga as a key rotational piece on a Michael Jordan team, that team is going to suffer. If you put David Lee next to Michael Jordan, he's not winning a title. Can you imagine David Lee trying to guard like Karl Malone in the finals? He's going to get cooked, and they're going to lose that series, right? So your supporting cast and your supporting pieces are everything. Those things have to be right. Those are the prerequisites to fully realize the potential of the greatness of the player that you have, that you build your team around. That being Steph Curry. Where did your passion for the Warriors come from? Thanks for all the straightforward insights. Thank you for that question. I think I'll make that the final question that I answer. I'm sure a lot of you guys don't know this about me. I do plan on making a video at some point about my background, my history with this team, and why I cover it and why I have the passion for this team to compete the way I do. But basically, I was a Michael Jordan fan growing up. Michael Jordan is the reason I became a fan of the game of basketball. I fell in love with the game, watching him. And so that's why I grew up watching the best, right? Michael Jordan set the bar. So when Kobe came along, it's like, it didn't do it for me. It didn't do it for me because he was a carbon copy. He was a copycat of Michael Jordan. He was like a slightly worse version of Michael Jordan, basically. And I'm not looking for a copycat. I'm looking for true OG original greatness, right? And that was Michael Jordan. So I'm not looking for another Michael Jordan. Right? You imitate Michael Jordan, like Kobe, obviously he was the closest thing that got to it, right? But I couldn't appreciate Kobe at the time because he played too much like Jordan. And then LeBron came. And then you try to tell somebody who watched Michael Jordan, right? and people try to tell you that this guy is better than Michael Jordan, and you're just like, no, man, you don't understand. You've been brainwashed by the media. The media keeps telling you that this guy is the king since he came out of college, since he came out of high school, right? They dubbed him as this, and all he did was fail. And until he was like, okay, I can't take this anymore. I got to cheat my way to a title. All right. So then he goes and cheats his way to a title, a couple of them. And you're telling me that that's greatness, right? This guy is unreliable. His jump shot is a liability, right? He goes to the finals and the Spurs are just like, they're like, we dare you to shoot this mid-range shot. And he can't make them. I mean, you're supposedly on your way to being a GOAT, and the other team is scheming for you to be the weakness of your team. How can that guy be the greatest of all time? I don't understand. This guy is like, if you're going to be the greatest of all time at something, like you got to be the best at a whole bunch of things. You know what I'm saying? And this guy is like lacking in a whole bunch of things. Right? He came into the league and he was not a reliable shooter. Like, he can't be the number one guy to close games. That's why he needed a Dwayne Wade. That's why he needed a Kyrie Irving, a guy who can close and hit game-winning shots more consistently than a guy like LeBron can. I'll give credit to LeBron. Like, he got better at that over the years. But as you can see, I have a lot of thoughts about LeBron. I never talk about it on this channel. But as somebody who, is a supporter of Steph Curry, and I've seen the game since the Michael Jordan days, so I can contextualize, the difference between all these guys and kind of explain where all the fallacies of this notion that like LeBron is better than Steph Curry, and like it's just, to me, it's kind of a joke, like the guy he's a poor free throw shooter. Yeah, like he has bad footwork. He travels a lot. The league doesn't call it. He's early in his career. He's like arguing about crab dribble. Like, what I'm saying? Like, he's not that skilled. It's just that his size and his frame allows him to, do a lot of the stuff that he does, and then halfway into his career, he stops playing defense. You're telling me this guy's the GOAT? I just stopped myself right there. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is not my guy. I'm not supportive of this, right? And then Steph Curry came along in his rookie year, and I don't follow college basketball, so I knew of his name, and I knew that he was a scorer in college, but that didn't really do much for me. There were plenty of guys that were monsters in college, and it didn't translate in the NBA. What's that guy that the Bobcats drafted? Adam Morrison? Adam Morrison, was it? That guy was averaging, I think, close to 30 in college, and he just never translated in the NBA. And so I generally don't pay attention to guys until they get into the league, and then I start, seeing what they can or cannot do, or what they are or what they are not. And I saw that Steph Curry was a very unusual talent in his rookie year. Like, he was just different. Like, his efficiency was just different. His ability to score at a high clip, very efficiently, and from the three-point line, and from the free throw line, and his ability to create his own shots, his ability to create offense, his ability to play point guard while being as efficient as he was. I'm just like, what is this guy? What is this? This is like, I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like this. See what I'm saying? I'm just like, this is like, he's different, right? And then as the months progressed, because Steph Curry initially, I don't think he was even in rotation initially, right? They had some depth. The We Believe years was dying out. There was a lot of drama with that team. And so he got his opportunities very gradually as injuries piled on, guys got traded. So as he got into the starting lineup, and then eventually Don Nelson kind of gave him the ball over Monte Ellis. And he's like, this is your team. I want you to create everything, right? And Steph Curry, he just kept getting better and better and better, like month by month by month. Steph Curry, in that rookie year, he had like, I think 5 games where he had like 30 points and 10 assists at least, right? And that, I think he matched Dwayne Wade and LeBron James that year in terms of players that, got 30 and 10 in his rookie year. So by the final month, Steph is averaging like 26, 5, 7, something crazy like that. 26, 5, 6, something like this, right? And he's shooting like 48, 44, 88. And I'm just like, oh my God. This guy is the future. Like, this is the future of the Warriors. It's so clear as day that this guy is better than Monte Ellis. They need to trade him ASAP, because you cannot have this small backcourt where Monte Ellis is taking a bunch of possessions from Steph Curry, right? So that was me. That was me that year in his rookie year. I'm like, this is it. Don Nelson showed the blueprint on what this team should be moving forward, right? You can't. Steph Curry is never going to blossom if you put Monte Ellis next to him, right? That's just not gonna. Even Monte Ellis knew that. That's why he was like, this is not gonna work. And that year, I totally bought into Steph Curry, and I decided, that was the first year. I don't know if you guys know much about like basketball card collecting, but that was the year Panini bought the rights to the NBA products license, and like Topps and Upper Deck and those guys lost their license, right? So I had actually gotten into basketball card, like the market, for the first time. And then here comes this kid, Steph Curry, and he's not valued highly. A lot of people aren't recognizing him as like, whoa, what is with this guy, right? They didn't really look at him or talk about him that way. He didn't even win Rookie of the Year. Tyreek Evans ended up winning Rookie of the Year. One of the very first videos on this channel was from back in 2010. If you go and look back, you'll find it. It's me talking about how Steph Curry should be the rookie of the year over Tyreek Evans. That was my first video on this channel. So I've been at this for a long time. And that year I committed to becoming like a super collector of Steph Curry in terms of his cards. And that year I picked up every single variation of Steph Curry rookie card that I could buy. So at that point, I had not only believed that Steph Curry was the future, I put my money where my where my mouth is, and I invested in this guy with money that I didn't even have, really. There's a lot of card scratching to get these cards, and and from there, I fully committed to watching to see what Steph Curry develops into. Right. So the first 3 years were tumultuous. He had ankle issues. Second year, Keith Smart takes over Don Nelson, and Keith Smart is absolutely awful. He is putting Steph Curry in the corner and using him as a decoy while Monte Ellis is doing, dancing, and it's the Monte Ellis show. And I'm just like, this ain't it, man. This is not gonna work. And this is gonna make sure that Steph Curry is never, able to get back to what he was doing in his rookie year. And then Keith Smart is like benching Steph Curry in favor of AC Law. I don't know if you guys remember AC Law, but literally, this guy was getting into games late in situations over Steph Curry because Keith Smart didn't like Steph Curry's defense while he's misusing him as an offensive player. So second year, very frustrating. Third year, Steph Curry's ankle gets badly hurt. He gets surgery, misses a majority of that season. And that entire time, I'm just like, they need to trade Monte Ellis, and they need to get rid of David Lee. These guys, these are not the types of pieces that you try to play competitive basketball with. You have to first identify who's the best player. That's Steph Curry. If the Warriors were more competent, they would have seen that sooner and not have wasted his second and third year by keeping Monte Ellis next to him, right? So that's another example of poor scouting. Poor scouting, you're wasting time. Can you think of what Steph Curry's legacy would have been if they understood who he was from the jump, the way they understood who LeBron James was from the jump, the way they understood who Kobe Bryant was from the jump? Well, Kobe Bryant, he came straight out of high school, so it took him a minute, but you get my point. These franchises understood that you have like this franchise caliber player that you drafted, right? And the Warriors did not understand that about Steph Curry. For 3 years, they thought that Monte Ellis was a better player than Steph Curry. So imagine being me and having to go through that for the first 3 years of his career. So a lot of things didn't really, go the way it could have for Steph. But I watched every single game. I followed every situation. And it really helps when you play like fantasy basketball, for example. I don't know if you guys do, but that makes certain things, it makes it easier to understand the league to some extent, because first of all, you know who everybody in the league is, you know who the specialists are, you know the position eligibility, you know these general rules, and you know these general players, you know which players are good at what, right? And that's the fun of playing that like GM role. You're playing a GM role when you play fantasy basketball, right? I've been doing that since like 2002, something like that. And so I have that. I have, the fact that I've been watching every single game, and I've been a student of the game, constantly learning. And I realized as soon as I started watching more games more consistently, I realized that I had a lot to learn, because before that, I was doing a lot of stat watching, right? You can also follow and understand patterns as you stat watch, right? You see a pattern of behavior from certain players. Like certain players, you see them in the games, you see them get a certain number of minutes, and you see that they're consistently helping their team win. Whenever this guy plays, that team wins. And so you can find these different trends in different ways. You can find it through stats, but the greatest way to find the truth is to watch the games and study the film and watch the games back, which is something that I've been doing for a long time. And again, I fell in love with the game of basketball because of Michael Jordan. And so I religiously played the game of basketball every single day. I would wake up at whatever time since like 7th grade, and I would go to school early so that I can play basketball for an hour before my day starts. And then I play after school. And this was my life, like every single day, like all the way into college, like, and into my adult life. I'm just for the love of the game, right? I just love it. Like, that's why I understand when Steph Curry loves to play so much and he hates to miss games, because he's competitive and he truly loves the game. He loves to play. He hates to miss games, right? It's something that we don't appreciate enough when it comes to him. And and yeah, so I resonated with Steph Curry in a lot of different ways. I resonated with him a lot of different ways, and yeah, I guess you could say the rest is history. I saw the change happen with Steve Kerr. I was actually happy. I was kind of excited about Steve Kerr and the new things that he was bringing on. I wasn't against it. And yeah, going into that season, I made all the predictions about how the Warriors would be the number 1 team, top 5 offense, top 10, top 5 defense. Steph Curry would be MVP, and the Warriors are going to win a title. That was the 14-15 season. And I put that in writing, and people thought I was crazy. And then that is exactly what ended up happening. Every single one of those things ended up happening. Top 5 defense, top 5 offense. Steph Curry is MVP, and the Warriors win a title. So that's the general history of like my connection to this team. And also around that time when he was winning titles, his first titles, I was in the media. I was part of this site called Sheridan Hoops. I had media pass. I was a media member. I had access to the games. So I had some experience writing. I had some experience seeing stuff behind the scenes, formed some relationships. So you can see there's a lot of different things that is within my past where I've done a lot of things where I'm not just like, just a fan watching games. Basketball is my life, and put it that way. Basketball is the love of my life. I love the game of basketball. It's my greatest passion in my life. And so I don't take this lightly. My body has suffered from playing the game of basketball for 3 decades. And I know the toll it takes on your body. And I know it takes things away from you physically, literally. A lot of people who play basketball for a long time, you never move the same. Something is off. Something is aching. You know what I'm saying? And I have great appreciation for that. And then when you talk about the NBA at the highest level, right, where the size, the physicality, just the length, these players are like the most skilled in the world, the strongest in the world, the tallest in the world, the fastest in the world, the most athletic in the world, right? You are literally playing this at the highest level possible. So, and all these guys, they're putting it on the line every single night. And on any given night, a player can suffer an injury, and it can be anything from, out for a few days, a week, a month, a couple of months, to an entire year. Just saw it this season. Jimmy Butler, out for the year. Right? So you got to respect this. You got to respect it. The game of basketball is it's like physical warfare out there. It's hostile. The game of basketball is hostile, right? It's not a joke. They're like, oh, it's just a game. Oh, you're a grown man. Like, okay, it's a grown man's game. The highest level of this game is played by adults, not kids. As a matter of fact, this game is a little too physical for a lot of kids and for a lot of casuals as well. If you get into any competitive game, it's not a joke. This game is like, it's the most difficult game to play. It's the game that involves the most amount of different types of movements, right? In terms of, vertically and horizontally, you move in every direction, right? So you see so many injuries, right? I'm telling you, these players are putting their livelihoods on the line every single night. They put on that uniform and they're performing in front of the world. It's a big deal. It's an event, right? It's a scheduled event that millions of people are tuning into, right? And a lot of people don't think of it that way, and they don't have that kind of appreciation for it. But I do, and I know how much Steph Curry puts up with to play the game, right? He deals with a lot of injuries, and he plays through them. So you have to appreciate that, and you have to make sure that you have to protect them as much as possible. And you have to make sure that you have to put the best combinations you can. You have to make sure you have enough size out there. And you have to make sure that things are making sense, what you're doing. All right. And that's why I've been so devastated by the things that Steve Kerr has been doing, because the things that he does makes no sense. You're making a mockery of the size and the level of, basketball that is being played at the NBA in that size. The size matters. The size has mattered for all of basketball, all of time, and that's never going to change. But Steve Kerr has no respect for that somehow. He played the game at the highest level, and somehow he doesn't understand that putting too many small guys on the floor at the same time is detrimental to your team. Right? And then at the same time, like I said, you're compromising so many factors, like against these players, right? You're putting them in position to lose, first of all. You're handicapping them, first of all. Secondly, you're putting them at risk of injuries. You play Draymond Green at the center spot all day and night against these giants that are a weight level up from the power forward position, right? At age 35, you're asking for an injury. You're using Jimmy Butler at age 36. You're asking for an injury. You're putting Steph Curry at the 2. At 6'3", at age 30, you're risking injuries. You're asking them to do too much. It's more taxing for any of these guys to be constantly guarding players that are bigger than them. Right? Weight classes exist for a reason. Every single position in the game of basketball is a weight class. Right? Shooting guard is bigger than point guard. Small forward is bigger than shooting guard. Power forward is bigger than small forward, etc. These are weight classes. That's why a lot of power forwards don't want to play center. Like AD doesn't want to play center, right? It's because it's more physically taxing. It's a harder position to play. And yet Steve Kerr's talking about it's positionless. It doesn't matter. It's disgusting. So that's where my passion comes from. Understanding that livelihoods are being put on the line and careers are being put on the line, right? Reputations, legacy, how the fans view these players, right? It all depends on what the coach is doing. And so the fact that Steve Kerr is like destroying the Warriors from within, I just can't not talk about that. So yeah, that's where my passion comes from. That's where my fandom comes from. I am drawn to greatness. My life and time is valuable. I have a lot of things to do and accomplish in this life. I don't have to be, just because I love the game of basketball, it doesn't mean that I have to commit my time to the NBA. If anything, I've always preferred to go out there and play over watching like an NBA game. That only changed when Steph Curry came along. And it's like, oh, I can't miss this guy. Like, this guy is, I don't know what he's going to be, but I think he's going to take over. right? That was my mindset. And then eventually he became the GOAT. And it's like, well, if you have Michael Jordan playing in real time, you're going to try to watch him as much as possible. Are you not? That's how I feel about Steph Curry. You and Curry duo would be crazy. I'm not sure what in what context you're saying that. I've spoken to Curry before. I've run into him before as a media member. Some of you may know I have like a interview with him on my channel. If you go to the front page of my channel, you'll see that that conversation from like a little over a decade ago. So you can check that out if you haven't. And yeah, I'm sure I'll run into him again at some point. We'll see. But at the end of the day, I support what he's done, right? I understand who he is. I understand that he has the opportunity to be able to get more titles. And for the team to not prioritize that, that's a crime. Right? So whatever the Warriors as a franchise is doing wrong, I'm just here to convey that truth as much as possible. I'm trying to get that out there as much as I can. And truthfully and honestly, I probably should have started this YouTube channel many, many years ago. But yeah, I just, I always wanted other people to get it right. So I would always tell them this and this and that, what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they need to do, blah, blah, blah. And what I realized was that nobody was doing it, right? Nobody in Warriors media is talking about this stuff. Nobody's talking about Steve Kerr in the way that I do, right? And you look at like ESPN and these like kind of propaganda channels, right? And they're always doing like LeBron propaganda, and they're always trying to find ways to talk down about Steph Curry, talking about him as a shooter, labeling him as like a, as if he's like some one-trick pony specialist or something, right? And the media guys were not doing it, right? You see Warriors media guys, they will never badmouth Steve Kerr. They will never question the things that he does. So all these people, I wanted them to do their jobs. They weren't doing it. And so that's why at some point I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to do this because I don't see anybody else doing it. And this needs to be out there. So more or less, I have been something like a historian of the Warriors in this Steph Curry era, because I've been covering them from the jump. And for the last, it started in 2009. So we're approaching like 16, 17 years. So yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. So I may not bat 100. I don't think anybody bats 100, but generally speaking, when it comes to Warriors analysis, when it comes to evaluation of the players, I've been mostly dead accurate when it comes to what the Warriors need, what the Warriors need to get rid of, right? What types of players they need to go and get. These things have been, right after the title year, I was pleading for the Warriors to trade Kuminga for OG Anunoby. And think about whether you believe the Warriors could have won a title that season or not, whether you believe that the Warriors could have gone back-to-back or not that year in the 22-23 season. If they had OG Anunoby instead of Kuminga, would the Warriors have had a better shot of contending for a title that year? That is obvious and needless to say yes. If you get OG Anunoby, who was a proven champion, part of the team that beat the Warriors, by the way, right? And you bring in a guy like that who is completely ready to help you compete for a title, and you have to give up second-year Kuminga to do that, you go and do that. If they had OG Anunoby that year, they 100% beating the Lakers. You know why? Because against the Lakers, the Warriors took them to a 6-game, like a game 6. And they played without Kuminga. Kuminga was completely useless to them. He wasn't used in the playoffs. Think about that for a second. They held on to a guy that the coaching staff deemed unusable in the playoffs. So he's their backup power forward, and they're missing that. The year before that, Otto Porter Jr. was playing that role, and they won a title. All of a sudden, they don't have Otto Porter Jr. They just have Kuminga, who's unusable. And they still took the Lakers to 6 games. If they had OG Anunoby, they're easily beating the Lakers. And then they would just have to beat the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think that would have been an easy series. But if they had OG Anunoby, if they had all these pieces, Draymond still in his peak, Steph Curry still in his peak, Clay was still there, they got GP2 back, they get OG Anunoby, they get Wiggins, top 3 perimeter defense in the league. I mean, come on. That would have given the Warriors a good chance to compete to beat the Nuggets in the Western Conference. And then if they beat the Nuggets in the Western Conference, they're winning the title because the Heat are not beating the Warriors, right? Jimmy Butler is not beating Steph Curry in the finals. So that should have been number 5. And the team didn't do that. They held on to Kuminga for the last 4 years, man. So this is what I do. I do what I can to try to put out the most viable idea to help the Warriors be the strongest version of themselves to be able to compete for titles. Right? That has always been my goal, and that is what I've been doing year in and year out. Yeah, that's about it. Should have traded Pods instead of TJD. Yeah, I don't think there was any space for TJD left with KP joining the team, right? You have KP, you have Horford, you have Post, and you have Draymond still. So that's like 4 guys. Like, there's no room for a TJD to be a part of this team anymore. So it is what it is. But again, I still do believe that they need to get rid of Pods. Pods is not a playoff caliber player. He's going to be a detriment, and the Warriors are going to have to overcome that detriment to try to win. Because Steve Kerr is going to play him too much. Okay. Jonathan Isaac for Moody and Pods. 6'11", Minister of Defense. What do you think? I love the idea of Jonathan Isaac 2 years ago. I don't know what's up with him now. He's barely in rotation, I think, for the Magic. 2 years ago, I was desperate for the Warriors to go and pick up an actual, backup power forward. Because the only one they had was like Anthony Lamb, Kuminga, freaking Dario Saric. Dario Saric, guys. Disgusting. And then using Andrew Wiggins at power forward, And I'm just like, go get a real power forward, man. Like, Jonathan Isaac would have been a really good piece. But I don't know where he is at this point. I think he gets paid a lot, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he's worth that contract at this point. And he's Steve's going to look at him only as a center, right? The Warriors already have too many centers. So I think they need to get a wing, somebody who can play ahead of like Moses Moody, Will Richard, Pods. Like, they need a wing. Yeah, 15 mil. I mean, it's not bad, but again, I don't see a world where he's going to be in rotation with the pieces that the Warriors already have, right? And he's not going to play small forward. So they need a small forward. They need like a 6'7", 6'8" guy, who's got wingspan, who is athletic. I mean, every time I describe these things, I just go back to Andrew Wiggins. Jimmy Butler, unfortunately, like, he has the same wingspan as DeAnthony Melton. That's the thing about him. That's limiting as a guy who contests, as an older guy who doesn't really contest anymore. That's where some of the problems with Jimmy Butler was. We'll see what happens. Tomorrow's the last day, so it's not like we have to wait long. And we'll see if we have to do any more emergency live streams here. But I appreciate all of you guys for joining me and sticking around and hearing my history a little bit and learning a little bit more about me. While, of course, also talking about the Warriors. There's the state of the Warriors, where they are right now. I'll just say I feel more encouraged than I did before this trade, because the fear was that the Warriors were not going to do anything. I'd rather deal with the uncertainty of KP than deal with Kuminga and Buddy Hield. Put it that way. So we'll see what the Warriors do. See, we were hearing reports that, if the Warriors don't get Giannis, they're probably just going to keep Kuminga and they're just not going to make any moves. That turned out to be false. The Warriors made a move. And so, who knows? We may be in for another surprise. They may make one more move. Me personally, I would be very surprised. But we're praying for the best. Having said that, thank you guys so much for being here. Like I said before, I appreciate you more than you know. You are the catalyst. You are the ones that empower my channel to grow so that we can get the truth out there as much as we can. The truth is divine. And I feel that I'm doing God's work by speaking the truth and spreading the truth, even if it's in the form of sports. So, yeah. Keep those comments coming. Keep those likes coming. Keep sharing the videos so that we can blow this thing up, so that, if we have important messages to get across to the team, then it's like front office, the players, whatever the case may be, they come to this channel, and get the information that they need, right? And for me, I don't care about hurting feelings. I have to tell the truth at the end of the day. I've hurt a lot of feelings in the NBA. A lot of players have blocked me over the years. Harrison Barnes blocked me a long time ago. Harrison Barnes blocked me. I couldn't stand Harrison Barnes in the first 3 years. Very frustrating, especially under Mark Jackson. He was frustrating to watch, but Mark Jackson was not using him correctly. And that's one credit that we can give to Steve Kerr, is used Harrison Barnes very well in his role. So, Harrison Barnes blocked me. Once upon a time, Andrew Bogut blocked me. I think it's because he was best friends with Harrison Barnes, and I was not kind to Harrison Barnes in his first few years, right? Jonathan Kuminga has me blocked. No surprise there, right? No surprise there. He definitely is not a fan of me, and that's okay. I have to speak the truth. And if it means getting another player off this Warriors team, I don't understand what the huge deal is. If a player doesn't work out with this team, then have him go to another team and hope that he has a better career there. What is wrong with that? It's mutually beneficial for Kuminga to be on a different team. But his fans are. It was the same thing with James Wiseman fans. It's out of control, man. Even KD has me blocked, actually. So I'm not one to be concerned about hurting feelings. I'm just here to speak the truth. Yeah. And maybe we'll see. We'll see if I can get some. We'll see if I can get some guests somewhere along the way on this channel, somewhere down the line. I might be able to get Andrew Bogut on the show actually, at some point. Andrew Bogut I think he's coaching now in Australia, so he's not as available as he once was. But but I am in communication with the guy, so we'll see. Having said that, thank you guys so much once again. I'll do this again Maybe I might do this maybe like weekly, once or twice a week. This is a good time. Anyway, we'll talk soon. Tomorrow's another game. I'll be on after tomorrow's game. So be on the lookout for that. And I'll see you guys next time. Yep. In the modern world, people's feelings are easily hurt. Have a good night, guys. I hope you enjoyed this session, and try to get your energy on like a positive path as much as you can, because I mean, what is the point of thinking or assuming that things are not going to work out, right? There's hope. There's hope. That hope hinges on, KP's viability, his availability will play a big hand. But if he is available to the Warriors, I mean, again, that's the same front court that won a title a couple of years back. So I would give that more consideration than what people are doing right now. We'll see. See you soon.